Welcome back. You're watching Morning Express, specifically the newsroom. Of course, we're going to be talking about issues of journalism and what role they play when it comes to portraying Kenya to the outside world. And of course, before we went for the break, we were talking about Kenya being a limitless opportunity, a country with limitless opportunities. But what is the role of media when it comes to portraying Kenya, Anthony?
I think the media plays a double role. Once, the media plays a reflective role where it shows the world what Kenya is like, it reflects what the country is like. And secondly, the media can also choose to be a projective institution where it kind of says, this is what we want people to think about Kenya. So if we look at the events of the last 1 or 2 weeks in Kenya, they haven't been very attractive. Like there's nothing that would want you to, make you want to come to Kenya to visit. Yeah. And so then the question is, how do we package Kenya? How is Kenya packaged? If the Miguna story is what is highlighted globally, then we package Kenya as a country that is not tolerant to diverse opinions. That's the package. If we decide that we want to sell Kenya as a tourist destination, then we have to package it and define what tourism is. Yeah. It's not just the usual lion, because Tanzania has lions. It's not just your usual beach, because most of our other African countries have the beaches. It's what is it that comes with that? How do we package it? And then a third and very important thing is the media can start, and I know they probably have started, but how do they continue to think globally? I think sometimes we forget and we inundate our news with only stories that are affecting us as Kenyans. But you must never forget that with YouTube and online access and with satellite television, all the news that we broadcast here in Kenya is broadcast globally. So how do we want our country to be seen globally? What people see is what determines whether or not they come here. And people don't just want to come to Kenya for tourism. People want to come to Kenya for school, and people do. People want to come to Kenya for investments, and people do. People want to come to Kenya for research, and people do come to Kenya for research. So all these wide array of issues that can be addressed by the media, they should start doing that a lot more often. How often do we have a combination of science or research, wildlife, tourism, investment opportunities, and how deeply do we even delve into it? And I just sometimes think about incidents 2 weeks ago when they're talking about the Rift Valley and cracking, and that's a really serious matter. But it has an agricultural component to it where farmers cannot go to their farms now. There are large-scale farmers who would be interested in investment in agriculture in the Rift Valley. There are people who think geothermal power is actually based in that particular area. So if anyone was interested in investing in power, they would not be thinking about the small-scale farmer and agriculture going on in the Rift Valley. They'll be thinking geothermal. And so what I'm encouraging Kenyan journalists and reporters and the media to think about is how to stretch these issues, delve deeper into them so that they provide better analysis that can let everyone who might be affected by that particular incident know whether or not to decide or choose to come to Kenya.
Okay, Mark, so then should we have Kenya in our hearts when we're doing our work as journalists?
Absolutely. First and foremost, we are here because we are Kenyans, so yes, we should first put Kenya first. But now we also have to take a look at how we cover stories and issues from a broader perspective. For instance, when you talk about tourism, we're talking about the environment, we're talking about the aesthetics, we're talking about essentially the God-given that we have in this country. And looking at Kenya and her neighbors, Kenya is not really an ancient state if you compare it to nations like Ethiopia that people lived there over 2,000 years ago. They got urbanized. They got rid of wild animals. Kenya, Tanzania, this entire stretch of East Africa has a lot of wildlife that was still untapped until poachers came in the 18th, 19th century, as well as our modern-day poachers. But we still have a responsibility as contemporary Kenyans to be able to paint it in good light, but that one needs a deliberate approach right from the top. We need to have something like a 10-year leap plan that Mao Zedong introduced in China. They are still running with his vision even up to date. So we still have to have a national vision concerning positive portrayal of the country, but also a concurrent development agenda that paints Kenya in good light, not just in terms of infrastructure development, attracting tourists at the expense of the livelihoods of the Mwananchi. We also need to have a broader approach so that when you talk about Kenya in good light, you can actually feel it, and someone looking at you will see it resonating in you as a journalist and in the stories that you put out.
So it's a very thin line.
It's a very thin line that needs to be approached from a much broader perspective.
Like earlier on, you were saying, you know, most of the times when we report news, we're thinking of things that affect us as Kenyans. We forget that, of course, there's YouTube, there's social media, and all that. For example, the KNH saga, we saw it being used as, you know, comic to some countries. For us, it's something serious. For the parents of, you know, the child, the family members, that is serious. For such a story, where do we go, keeping Kenya still in our hearts?
You know, we'll have to continue speaking the truth. And the moment, and I agree with Mark, like this thing has to be a chain of events. The people in authority, the government, will have to make sure that Kenya is stable. We'll have to make sure that Kenyans are secure, so that they can enable us as journalists to do our job. Because there's no way we will wake up one day and say that we are going to market Kenya as a good country for guys to come and visit, simply because we want people to come and visit. We cannot do that. So this thing is everyone, all of us have to work together. The government will have to ensure security, the rule of law, and infrastructure as well, so that for us as journalists, like Mark is saying, every one of us, we are Kenyans, and we are happy to be Kenyans, by the way, very happy to be Kenyans. But it has to be like everyone is helping the other to make sure that everything is okay. The Kenyatta issue was bad. It was bad. And we know, like, we should not be there in this age. Should we? Like, no. It should not be happening to Kenya. And you know, we are the biggest economy in East Africa. Yeah? We should be leading the other guys. And they are looking up to us. Whenever I talk to guys from the other countries, they're saying, hey, you guys are doing so well. But something like Kenyatta happens and you are like, oh, God, what is happening here? So, yeah, it should be, everyone is coming on board so that even the independent filmmakers at their own individual capacity, when they're making the small films and all that, they need to be proud of what they're doing. And guys are very proud about the SGR. I'm not very sure how proud and why. But it's passing through the national park and guys can see animals and all that. But when you do an SGR whereby guys can go to Mombasa in 4 hours, and then what happens to Kenyatta happens, then we forget everything.
It dissolves everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what are the factors that make Kenya either sellable or rejectable, Anthony?
I think the sellability, to coin that word, of Kenya depends on how well we analyze the issues and how much we rely on facts that can help government, can inform government into making decisions that are beneficial to the country and to anybody who's interested in the country. Now, I'll give 2 scenarios that have been very very controversial the last month in Kenya. And one is the Kenyatta Hospital saga. We spent a lot of time looking for the surgeons who operated on these people, and we crucified them. We took them through a parliamentary committee discussion. But the underlying issue was not the 2 people who are providing the surgery. There's a lot of things that go into play. There's a whole chain. Eventually, we narrowed down to a nurse who was really tired or couldn't, process the paperwork. But at the same time, our government was out in Cuba trying to bring in doctors to come and support the Kenyan health sector. Now, it will take a lot of analysis and honest discussions and juxtaposing those 2 scenarios. Here's a country that has doctors who are working overtime, but is going outside to look for other doctors to assist in the medical field. But secondly, there's about 1,700 doctors who are not in employment. They're qualified, but they're not in employment. So instead of thinking of going outside to get doctors, how do we work on employing the doctors who are here, because we train them and it's really expensive to train them. The second thing is we had Wajir, where kids went out in protest because there were no teachers. It was a matter of insecurity. Now, Kenya does not have a shortage of teachers. What Kenya has is a shortage of budget to be able to employ all the teachers that Kenya has trained. So which are the institutions responsible? How do we make the process of training and employing teachers fluid enough to be able to accommodate all the teachers and offer these children an education? So a lot of what we need to do actually depends on how we prioritize issues, number one. And number two, it will depend on the interdependency of the institutions in charge. So the teachers who are not teaching in Wajir is not because they're not competent, it's not because they don't love their jobs, it's because there's no security. So rather than crucify teachers and interdicting them, which is what they did for not showing up at work, why don't we find out how we can protect the teachers? And so when you have a contingent of security officers at the airport, and someone in Wajir is saying teachers left because we didn't have security, then a Kenyan will start wondering what really are our priorities. And the media can help in prioritizing those issues by playing a more projective rather than a reflective role.
All right, Mark, you've covered several stories across board. What are the challenges you face while doing this?
Now, actually, when you go out to do a story, you first you leave the newsroom knowing that I'm going to do this particular story. But eventualities that befall you out in the field are a matter of, of a story for another day.
Yes.
So basically, it's you, your pen, your notebook, the camera, and the microphone. And you're out there looking out for your cameraman, the cameraman looks out for you. And through experience, you will always predict how things are going to be, especially when it comes to political rallies, and especially when it comes to the approach towards the government versus the opposition. He has mentioned the issue of we portraying ourselves as a country that is tolerant to divergent views politically. If we go out to the field, it becomes factual. What we see is what we report becomes factual. And the viewers, not only local viewers, but international viewers, look at what they see and they deduce what they can make out of that. So basically, as journalists, you go out as a clean slate, you go out and see what you can and cover what you can and analyze it the best way you can.
Yeah.
But what comes out in this digital era is that you are being viewed live from another part of the world, and that makes a lot of sense for other people to judge us according to what they see. Now, numbers, when you look at numbers, tourism has been in the top 3 foreign exchange earners. Tourism, tea exports, as well as foreign remittances from abroad.
Yes.
But looking in the past 3 years, remittances, monetary remittances from abroad have overtaken tourism, which tells you that we are a country that is looking like one that is holding a bowl out to the international world, please help us. So we need to be self-sufficient. We need to be sellable, not beggars.
When you put it like that, it sounds so bad. But anyway, of course, it's a two-way thing between journalists and industry players. Of course, you've been in the field before. Have you gotten the support from industry players?
I think I would speak a bit because for what we do as a, sorry, as AfricaLive.tv,
yeah,
we try to tell the positive stories and sometimes leave a lot of work to Mark Namaso and his colleagues to go to the political rallies and be banged at the airport.
Yeah.
So I would say that there's a kind of a support. And I would want to talk about the Kenya Tourism Board because I've worked with them for a number of years, maybe from 2012, covering a number of outreach events, the Camel Derby, the Lamu Cultural Festival,
yeah,
the Turkana Cultural Festival. And what do I mean by facilitation? At least they are willing to notify you when the events are happening and what is taking place in the events and who they expect, so that even when you are packaging your stories, because like for us, what we do, we package stories for a lot of international outlets. So our aim is to show what is happening, the positive things are happening in our country. Because like I said before, we have, think about it when the Camel Derby happens in Maralal. Who is benefiting? The economy of the dusty town of Maralal, yeah? Because there are guys, there are people who own hotels there and lodges. Even if they charge 1,000 or 2,000 per night, they've spent like a whole cycle of an year without having any guests. But during the 3 days or 4 days, they have them. They have the Camel Derby. They are getting guests. They are earning. So I think to that I would credit the Kenya Tourism Board because for me they've already like made sure that they facilitated that and they gave out the information. But I still think we are having a problem when it comes to financing because it goes back to the budgetary allocations. Tourism, like Mark said, has been our one of the top earners of our country.
Yes.
I think last year they said it was 120 billion Kenya shillings, all the way from 99 billion Kenya shillings from 2016. So there's a growth, although like Mark is saying, it's like kind of it's not the way it's supposed to be. Yeah. But I think we need to bring a lot more bodies together. Like on my own thinking, why do we have a lot of different bodies which are managing tourism? Why do we have Brad Kenya, Kenya Tourism, you know, all those things? I thought like they could come together and try to do a common job so that they can at least achieve something. Right. So what I would want to see going forward, we need to package our tourism in a different way, because a lot of people have been talking about the way we package our tourism. And maybe we should learn from what Egypt and South Africa do with their tourism, yeah? Because when they talk about sports tourism, but you're just talking about it on the media there and other channels, why don't we come up with a program whereby it's going to be a complete program whereby you're talking about sports tourism. When tourists come here and you take them to the side beaches in Mombasa and all the other areas, Masai Mara, they can go to Iten and Eldoret to participate and have a program for them. When we talk about agricultural tourism, we're talking about the people who are doing farming, daily farming and tea farming in the Mount Kenya regions and the Rift Valley regions. Yeah. Why are we not coming up with an involving activity whereby we'll take tourists to Nyeri and have them spend 2-3 days with the farmers and see how the best quality tea
and experience
it's picked and processed and experience that. And when they go back to their countries, they will carry that along. Yeah. Otherwise, if we don't do that, if we don't look at a different way of packaging our tourism, we'll continue recording 126 billion, 131 billion. We want to make a very big move. We want to move from 120 billion and go all the way to 200 and something. But that is only when we do things in a different way. And you see, like in the last week, I think, the Backless Open, Kenya Tourism Board was there, I think, in a big way. But you see, when you go to an event now as Kenya Tourism Board, you need to convince Kenyans why it is important for them to go there. Because we're talking a lot, and sometimes maybe, and I'm sorry for this, sometimes we are talking to the big Kenyans, you know, like the people who can access our information on all the Facebook, the Twitter, but we don't go down there to, why didn't we have a very good spreaded advert of what is happening at the Barclays Open on even the community radio stations and TV stations? Okay. We need to engage everyone. This is a big field whereby everyone needs to be engaged.
All right. And of course, as you said, most of, marketing is left to the Ministry of Tourism. But then can journalism, or rather selling Kenya, be included in our courses back in school, like teach journalists, young journalists, how to sell Kenya? Anthony? I
think marketing is the essence of media. I mean, anytime that you publicize something, you're marketing it out there. Just like you have mentioned, and most of my colleagues have mentioned, and not specifically the tourism, is how well are we training our journalists to be able to cover the various sectors that do exist. And of course, that coverage, you're also looking at the very fact that even if you talk tourism or you talk about agriculture, and all these sectors are interdependent. Yeah. So how do we train our journalists, our media people? How do we train our children to understand and accept that this country is full of diversity? It's not just the key 4 or 5 things. Right now, we're inundated with a lot of stories on infrastructure or energy or agriculture, and then we talk tourism. There can be no tourism or meaningful investment in agriculture if there is no safety and security. There can be no, there can be no energy or infrastructure development if there is media censorship. Yeah. There can be no good infrastructure if there is insecurity and people are moving out of the regions that they have been living for a long time. So how do we train our journalists so that, one, they are specialists, okay, not generalists, and then number 2, they can critically analyze issues that are affecting Kenyans, and then number 3, what kind of a front will the media put to task the government to not just listen to the people, but also act on people's recommendations? Yeah. Do we have a media day where the media actually invites the government, as opposed to the government inviting the media inviting the government and saying, look, you have this forum, and this forum is to discuss some of the issues that the media has seen the last 1 year and what needs to be taken, and then commit to following that up. I'm not blaming the media. We have a shortage of media houses. We have a shortage of opportunities.
Do we really have a shortage?
No, we do. No, we do have a shortage. And why I say we have a shortage is if we want to cover something now in Loyangalani, you are more likely to have a reporter come from Nairobi to go to Loyangalani, as opposed to a television station in Loyangalani feeding you with information of news that they have gathered and say, now we're linking up with this TV station or radio station in Loyangalani. And then, so there's the question of the media houses that we have, which is the reason we have so many stories that we leave out and which will be very important to Kenyans. Why do we leave them out? There's no space, there's no time. Then how do we also diversify in terms of our programming? I was pretty excited about the digital migration. I saw that as an opportunity for local production, which would highlight a lot more issues, offer more employment. But because it didn't actually take effect as it was intended to, we have a very, very high population of trained communications people in this country, but who have no forum to practice the trade.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. Of course, from my immediate left, Mark Namaswa, our very